Monday, everybody, and welcome into the Gramlich and McLean podcast, presented by Ingles, the official supermarket of Gramlich and McLean. Syracuse, Orange, we're here. We're talking Syracuse. Brent Axe, who, Mac, I say this on the show, I could listen to him read the phone book. I love listening to him. He was born to be in radio, and he tells so many great stories. But, Mac, before we get to Brent, this is a big week, all right?
It is a big week.
This is Valentine's week.
Huge week.
Yeah. So I know you're going to be ready. You're going to be spoiling khaki, right? Because Valentine's is all about the girls.
That's a great point that you bring that up. Here's the deal, KG. I'm challenging you because I am sick of this sexist holiday where it's only one-sided and all these beautiful women expect to get all this stuff and the men are just left to dry. So I want to do a little challenge here from our friends at Ingles, where you have to spoil Nick. He deserves that, okay? So you got to go make like a little gift bag, whatever it is, and I'll do the same for khaki. I'm not going to make her do the challenge. I'm going to do the challenge here, and we're going to see. We're going to see who has the better gift basket for their spouse via our friends over at Ingles. Are we good? Can we do that?
Yes, I like it. We need a spending limit because we know Mac's a big baller.
Oh, that's a good point.
We'll discuss the spending limit off air, but it needs to be the same.
Well, you know, at Ingles, you're going to save a bunch of money. We can run this thing up and get a bunch of stuff. But you're right. We can get way more bang for our buck with our friends over at Ingles. I like that.
Well, and this is even better, Mac, because as per usual, I'm leaving the morning after Valentine's Day. So I'm actually here. I'm actually in person for Valentine's Day, which is a rare occurrence during basketball season. But Mac, look at you, just standing up for the men of the world.
I'm just trying. We deserve to be spoiled too, okay? Just a little.
Can we send Brent a Valentine's gift basket?
Right, yes. I like that idea. Listen, let's get to that because he was awesome. We went for a long time. And hey, we were excited before, but I'm running through orange walls right now, baby. Okay, and y'all will too right after this. Let's get to the interview. A quick message from our friends over at Ingles, and then here we go with Ben.
It's time to discover the convenience and time savings of contact-free pickup with Ingles Curbside. Just visit shop.ingles-markets.com or download the app. And your Ingles personal shopper gets to work with specialized training on how to select the freshest items for a pre-scheduled pickup. They'll even text you with updates. You pull up to a designated space and your personal shopper delivers your items right to your vehicle. Fresh, fast, and affordable. It's all in the bag. Ingles. Low prices. Love the savings.
The Axe Man is back. So y'all know what time it is. We're talking about the Cuse Orange. And I'm excited about this one today, B, because I've just got to say, man, there's a lot of hype starting to be created for the Cuse Orange in 24. We're going to look at 23 just a little bit. But, brother, thank you for joining us. We're glad you're not in the hospital. We were joking a little bit about that. You're home. You're happy. You're healthy. You look great.
Appendicitis, do not recommend if you don't have to have it. It's a funny little organ. It just kind of decides one day, like, I'm out. And it's like the worst pain you'll have in your life other than childbirth, as Kelly knows. So listen, it's great to be here and not in the hospital. It's great to see you guys. And so here's the thing, like, we joke all the time that there's no off season in college football. In Syracuse, New York, guys, it has not existed since the day Fran Brown's name came up because of, just the general process of hiring a coach and everything, but the man will not stop adding players to his roster. There was a point I was like, please stop doing this so I can have a day off. But the hype is unlike anything we have ever seen in Syracuse, New York. You know, when I talk to my readers, I have a shameless plug here. We have a Syracuse Sports Insider text program now, where we text people. And when I send the basketball stuff, they're like, no, more football. Give me more football. It's been incredible.
I love that. That's fantastic. That's good news for us. Let's jump on this train with you. I think Dan Presser is the leading conductor, my producer over there on the huddle. He's balls to the wall with that, and very excited as a Cuse alum. He's been hitting me over the head for years about Syracuse, and now I think there's some legitimacy to that. We're going to talk about all that, but I do want to start with 23 because I think there's kind of, let's say it's a little typical lately of Syracuse, but there's like multiple seasons within this one. You know, when you really look at it, you've got the blazing hot start. We're all excited. Offense is looking good. Defense doing their thing. And then Clemson. And then, North Carolina. And then FSU. And then Virginia Tech. And then it's like this bulk of the schedule was just absolutely brutal. And then we start playing backyard football. And it's just like, hey, we got guys hurt. I don't know what else to call this thing. Let's put our best player at quarterback and see what happens. And it was fun. And it was interesting. And it was unique. And now there were times where it absolutely did not work. And you're just like, what the heck? But overall, man, when you look at this 23, what's kind of your 30,000 foot view, kind of opinion on this thing?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Like I tell my readers and listeners all the time, I don't root for your team, but I root for interesting. And that was one of the most interesting seasons I've ever covered, just from the standpoint of, I turned to my colleague, Emily Liker, 100 times during the season. I'm like, what are we watching right now? I'm watching Dan Villare run out here and play quarterback. It felt like a wishbone offense from the 1920s. But I think what last year comes down to, guys, is pre-Garrett Schrader injury, post-Garrett Schrader injury, right? Mm-hmm. And what that meant for this football team. When he was healthy and he was humming, that offense had something, the combination with him and LaQuinn Allen and what they were trying to do. But once we kind of found out the severity of his injury, you knew. I'm really struck when I go back to after Syracuse lost to Florida State. And a lot of those losses you mentioned, Eric, they came on national television, ESPN, Thursday Night Football, primetime games. Syracuse found itself on national TV a lot and just fell on its face, unfortunately, in many of the times that they did. And I'm sitting there at a press conference with Dino Babers. And I asked Dino, this is halfway through the season after they lose to Florida State. It was like 41-3. And it was just a general question about, like, how's your team looking? War of attrition, depth, that whole thing. And Dino comes back with this terse, we don't have any depth because it all gets bought away comment, right? Mm-hmm. And it just spoke to NIL and the current life that Syracuse football is dealing with, everybody's dealing with, right? With what's going on in college football today, and how he just didn't seem to be embracing it. Meanwhile, we're kind of wondering, like, what's the line here? Is 6 wins good enough? Is 7 wins good enough to bring it back? And Eric, that's the other thing I think about. John Wildhack is on record as saying that if Dino won 7 games, he's back as to serve out the last year of his contract here in 2024. And then you're thinking, do you extend him? And we're not having any of this conversation. To go back to the old cliche of one play goes one way or the other, and Syracuse beats Boston College. Syracuse wins a game last year that, they were supposed to win. We're not talking about any of this, right? Mm-hmm. But they did lose that game. They did go down the stretch. John Wildhack smartly sensed like we had to turn the page here, and here we are.
Well, and that's a great way to put it, Brent, because I do think it's interesting, whenever you fire a coach that made a bowl game, depending on where which program you're talking about, but for most programs in the country, firing a coach that made a bowl game is an interesting move. But I think there was so much more to this situation, to your point. And how much of this, Brent, do you think is Dino Babers? Love him, great guy, of course. I think we all agree with that. But was he not super in on embracing what Syracuse, a place like Syracuse specifically, needs to do in embracing NIL and things like that? Do you think that was part of the decision as well?
I don't think there's any question about it, because whenever he spoke publicly about it, he seemed frustrated with it. He seemed like this is a chore. Whereas you look, not that other coaches haven't. I mean, Dabo's been pretty outspoken about it, but he's got a little more leverage to speak where he's coming from. So when you're Syracuse,
B, you don't think it was more like, it wasn't a cry for help. It was like this, I don't like doing this.
It was both. I think it was both. Okay. But it was not. It was probably not the way you should have gone about it.
Sure.
And as we'll get to here shortly, Dino was upholding that process, right? So I think it was a little bit of both in that, Kelly. And I just walked out of that room that day, and I almost wanted to tweet it or something. I'm like, I don't want to get on the freezing cold takes here in 2 minutes. But I knew he was done. I just knew he was done. But again, knowing that Wildhack could bring him back, you just kind of had to let the process play out there. Now, what upheld that, as we now know, is there were a lot of donors, a lot of alums, specifically former players in the mix here, that were specifically not donating to the program because of Dino Babers. And what I mean by that, guys, and Kelly, you said it, I love Dino. He's a great dude. I would love to hang with him, watch movies, and I enjoyed covering it. But Dino just had these really weird procedures. And one of them was that former players were just not embraced. Alums were not embraced. There's exceptions to all rules. I don't want to paint with a broad brush here. But when Fran Brown was hired, The day he's hired, I see people in the room I hadn't seen around the program for years, and I talked to him. Robert Drummond, running back from the '87 football team. Quadri Ismail, who went on to play for the Baltimore Ravens, one of Syracuse's notable NFL alums. 5 or 6 other players on the record with me, and I wrote a column that day, and about 20 others that reached out and reiterated what those guys said. They didn't feel welcome around the program. For Dino's first year as head coach, he essentially said, I get it, but give me a year with this team and we'll figure it out, which was kind of understandable at this point. But come on, Eric, you got to embrace your alums. You can't shun them. So it was not a coincidence that when Syracuse made this change, all of a sudden there's more money coming in. There's more donors coming in. And you can go get a Kyle McCord, as I'm sure we'll talk about in the transfer portal and things of that nature. The second thing that was weird was he never let us talk to his assistant coaches. Why? Like, that's an opportunity for them to want to advance and get out there. And if they want to be head coaches and kind of move up the chain. So I think a lot of that stuff just kind of came to a head right at the end.
Yeah, man, that's fascinating. And again, appreciate the insight, because that's something that, just with you being so intimate with the program and being there each and every day, you know that, because that to me is bizarre. I mean, you got to get those guys in the house. We got to see what Syracuse men look like. And I love when Coach Brown said that. That was almost a call out to everybody, in his opening press conference, saying, I don't necessarily need your money. I need your time, and I need you here. I need people to see you. And I think that's so important, because, as players, we're walking in those footsteps. You've already been there. We're walking in your shoes. We need to know how and what mistakes you made so we don't make them. And, how can we leverage that? So that's bizarre. But at the same time, I love that Coach Brown has really, kind of embraced that, did that. Jumping back into the season, man, when I bring up that losing streak where it's just like, oh my gosh, here we go. Depth's a concern. Injuries are a concern. And that's really been the biggest thing for me. And I think Coach Brown has addressed that. And we'll talk about that again. We keep saying we're going to keep talking about it. We're going to get there. But that's just what it was. And we didn't have the size. We didn't have speed. We didn't have availability because guys were hurt or injured or whatever. But then they found a way. And that Pittsburgh game, I think that was the first game of the backyard football. And, they win 2 out of the last 4 there. I saw grit. I saw promise. I saw dudes that love to play ball. And you have to celebrate them for that.
You do. And LaQuinn Allen, I think, really stepped up on both positions, not only running the football. He was back there playing a little quarterback. The legend of Dan Villari shined through here. And what he was tasked with doing. Now, this is a guy who, remember, went to Michigan as a quarterback, just didn't cut through there, comes to Syracuse, wants to play quarterback. They move him to tight end, and then eventually has to go back to quarterback. Now, he could throw the ball a little bit, but not to the extent that you're going to ask him to throw 20 to 25 times. But the way that offense went all in on that, embraced it, found a way. We said it. They were still a bowl-eligible team. They almost won another game, which would have changed the whole conversation. And the defense, the way the defense is, they've been asked to do a couple of times in recent years, just kind of held things together. Now, that last game against Wake Forest, you could start to see some of the seams coming apart, as you mentioned, Eric, with the depth and some things that happened. But the way Marlo Wax, you look at the stats every game, dude's got 14 tackles, and Caleb Okechukwu in that defense stepped up. That's a credit to them, because it could have easily gone the other way. They knew there was pressure on their coach. They knew it was a kind of here we go again season. But that team bonded together, and they found a way to fight through that. And every game, they ran that offense. I'm just like, how are they doing this? Because, Eric, Kelly, you know what's coming. It's not like, we're going to razzle-dazzle you here. This isn't going to be some kind of chess match. Like, it's coming. But that's football at its best, when it's like, here it comes, here's the play, spider to a wide banana, try and stop it. And most teams couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. And boy, there's this image, the last home game. Dan Villari comes in. He's got ice packs everywhere. He was like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Batman movie when he was Mr. Freeze, just ice packs. And I'm like, that's this season right there, in a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
Hey, Casey's a big superhero movie gal too, so she knows exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Love all the.
Do. Hey, Brent, I do. She has no clue what you're talking about.
I've seen The Dark Knight. I've seen the Dark Knight.
It's a couple years. It's a couple years. Just a couple years before the Dark Knight.
Okay, well, I've seen that one.
Kelly, it was a terrible movie. Don't get me wrong.
See,
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I don't need to see it,
was
Mac.
good.
She's gonna have to watch it. No, she's gonna have to watch it.
It's terrible.
Okay,
but go
Mac,
watch it.
with all due respect, I'm not sure I'm going to ask Brent any more questions about 2023 because I want to talk about
That's fair.
Fran Brown and Kyle McCord and how all this went down. And I could listen to Brent read the phone book. So I want to hear him tell me this story of how this happened, what he was thinking when Syracuse hired Fran Brown. And then when you start seeing the stuff on Twitter of Kyle McCord is heading to Syracuse, Brent, walk us through all of this.
It's quite a story, Kelly. So let's just backtrack to when Syracuse is officially on the market. John Wildhack announces before the last game that Syracuse is in the market for a coach. The whole Syracuse Twitter world could not say Dan Mullen's name enough. And I was just like, look, guys, all due respect to Dan Mullen. He is not coaching at Syracuse. It's through that whole thing. Boy, did I have to bite my lip a bunch. I'm like, God, just stop. Not happening, right? But then some names started to emerge. Bob Chesney was the main name at Holy Cross. I was convinced he was the guy. Late in the process, Fran Brown's name comes up. Not heard the name until then. And then you start looking into it and why and what the plan was and what he was selling Wildhack. And then boom, everybody learned pretty much at once, like, here we go. This is happening. Fran Brown gets hired. From the minute he hits the ground running, Fran Brown is bringing in players from Georgia, players, the Camden, New Jersey connection. This is the main thing with Fran Brown, guys. Camden, New Jersey, and all his Jersey guys and those Northeast roots that he has. John Wildhack is pretty much sold by Kirby Smart, the Georgia coach. Like, you would be a fool not to hire this man. Fran Brown was at Kirby Smart's side and learning about being a head coach. Meanwhile, having the reputation as a great recruiter. So what Fran Brown did, Kelly, is he came in and it wasn't just, this is what we're going to do. It was, this is what we're doing, because the man was showing receipts right away. Goes back to those Jersey connections. He knew Kyle McCord from Kyle McCord's Jersey roots, had recruited him, had seen him play. So while the transfer portal offers opportunities in terms of money and playing time, and you got to kind of scout out where you got to go, if you have a connection to somebody, it's an advantage. So Fran Brown, early in the process, flies to Columbus to talk to Kyle McCord. I got a tip about this from somebody, and they're like, look, I'm not messing with you here. Kyle McCord's in play for Syracuse. And I was like, come on, man. Because let's be honest here. You're going to pay Kyle McCord.
Axe, man. I was the same way. Yeah. I saw it and I was like, get out of here. Like, what are y'all talking about? No shot.
That's what I said. Because I'm like, look, Fran Brown's great. He's a good recruiter. But then he started to say, well, okay, there's a connection there. So that gets you in the room. And they're like, well, where's the NIL money coming from? And it's what we talked about. All of a sudden, there's all these alums coming back. And in Kyle McCord's case, there was, I don't want to give anybody free advertising here, but there was I'm going to say this, a local business owner that stepped up and said, I got you covered, whatever the price is. Okay. Boom. Kyle McCord's the Syracuse quarterback. So I'm thinking back to, because I broke that story that Kyle McCord was coming in, and I'm getting the information, I'm getting the tips, and it's locked in. And there was a big visit weekend. Kyle McCord, Fidel Diggs, all the transfers were here for a visit. And there was a big event that they were all at, a big team dinner. I'm sure you guys saw some of the Lamborghini photos and some of the bling they were bringing into the dome. So this was actually a different event than that, but that's how they were kind of shining those recruits. Signed, sealed, delivered. They get him. They get him the NIL money he wanted, the opportunity to play, the connection to not only play again with Fran Brown, but new Syracuse offensive coordinator Jeff Nixon. Had a plan for him, play pro-style offense, a lot of 12 personnel, fits what you do. And all of a sudden, not only because of the connection to Fran Brown, Kelly, but there's a plan here. This is the offense. He kind of had a little insight, I would think, into what Aronde Gadsden's status is. Who would be back? Who's my offense? And then, what a world we're living in. Kyle McCord, the Ohio State quarterback, Fidel Diggs, the Texas A&M defensive end, and so on and so forth. A couple of players we'll mention here. Georgia wide receivers. The flood. Everybody comes to Syracuse. It was absolutely incredible.
Brent, that story
I'm still
delivered.
pinching myself.
The way you told it, absolutely delivered. And, it's funny because it brings us full circle a little bit, because Dino Babers was talking about losing his depth for NIL. And if guys, if they do well at Syracuse, then maybe they leave and go somewhere else. But there is an advantage to NIL that if you use it the right way, it can help you at a place like Syracuse, where you can get an established quarterback who wants to go play right away, has a connection with your head coach, knows you're bringing back Aronde Gadsden and LaQuinn Allen, and says, I'm there. So you're kind of seeing this whole story go full circle. And I feel like that's one of the most appealing things about Fran Brown. And you mentioned the fan base really embracing it. I know it's February. It's February, and we're still in basketball season, and Deja Fair's putting up 40 a game.
That's right.
Are you feeling that? Like, I don't know if we'll have a sellout or whatever for game one, but are we feeling that excitement?
Kelly, I feel it every day. My readers, my listeners can't get enough football. And that's because Fran's delivered. It's not just a curiosity about everything. It's Pavlov's dog. They've been trained to wake up, and so-and-so has entered the transfer portal and transferred to Syracuse. Signing day coming up this week, which is not, the electric signing day it used to be. And I'm not sure it's going to be that busy for Syracuse, but they flipped a bunch of recruits back in December in a short period of time, that some had Fran Brown connections, some had Elijah Robinson connections, the new defensive coordinator, who's an ace recruiter himself, Nick Williams, who they brought from Colorado. So that was kind of their big recruiting plunge. People can't get enough of it. And Kelly, I am going to make you a guarantee on this podcast right now. You ready? Every Syracuse football home game is going to sell out.
Oh.
Wow.
And for the first time since when? For the first time since when?
I can't remember the last time that's happened.
Wow.
Here's not even a McNabb era did that happen.
Oh, wow.
Here's my cheat code on this. So they're renovating the JMA Wireless Dome this summer, and including in that project, there are now 42,000 seats.
Oh, okay.
Down from 49. So I've got the math on my side.
I like that.
I've got the buzz on my side. They averaged 37,000 people last year.
Yeah,
even through everything we talked about.
Come on.
You can get there.
Yes.
Right? Here we go.
Wow.
They're going to sell it every game.
Wow.
You heard it here first, folks.
That is amazing. And here's the deal. Since we're talking, I do want to jump back into some of these other players and what you guys are adding. But looking at the schedule, it's a little weird, little unique, because it's 4 home games in a row, 3 away games, home game, away game, and then 2 at the end at home. So it's very interesting how you kind of have this spurt here. But I think I like it. I mean, the way that it sets up, I think you start fast, you're in a really cool spot, and you're feeling really, really good about yourself, just about what you can do. And the good thing is, you got a little bit of a warm-up versus Ohio. And I don't have any insight on Ohio right now, but I think you feel okay about that. And then you've got a really nice battle against Georgia Tech and against a quarterback and an offense that are established and, arguably could be one of the more exciting ones coming back in the ACC. So it's got to start fast. It's got to happen quick. And I just think with everybody coming in, all these guys that are coming in now, that's beneficial and that's helpful. One thing, Brent, that I saw on these players, because we'll go back to the schedule again, but looking at these players, the common knock, I guess, that I've had for Syracuse since I've worked at the network is starters are good. Starters are in a good place, and there's some really great talent sprinkled throughout. But then when we get to 2s and 3s, it's just guys either aren't ready or are not big enough, and it's just dismantled. And I'm looking at this portal, and I see 6'5", 240, 6'3", 6'4", 290, 6'6", 270, 6'4", 315, 6'7", 330. I'm seeing dudes. I'm seeing big dudes. And that's how you win football games. That seems to be addressed right now and something that they're automatically building that depth, which I'm excited for.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I got my little cheat sheet over here, and I had to write them all down just to remember, Fidel Diggs, 6'5", 260. Braylon Ingram, who, by the way, transferred to Syracuse from Alabama, 6'4", 301.
Yes.
Deion Wilson Jr. Anytime you can bring in a guy whose nickname is Tank, I'm in. Sign him up. 6'5", 300. Isaiah Hastings, who, by the way, chose Syracuse over Alabama. 6'4", 290. But it's not just size. And you got to add in Josh Miller, by the way, offensive lineman who transferred in from Georgia. That's big. It's speed.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, remember Deuce Chestnut? Went to LSU,
back,
disappeared.
He's back.
He's back. Stroke of midnight, New Year's Eve, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Put out his announcement. That was genius.
Brent's just trying to live, man.
I'm just trying to watch Ryan Seacrest bring in the new year and Deuce Chestnut's committing to Syracuse. But that was smart. Devin Grant, they brought in from Buffalo, a safety, who was one of the most productive players in the MAC last year. James Hurd Jr., great wide linebacker from West Virginia. So it's size, it's speed, it's productivity, it's guys that can step in right away. The big thing is the offensive line. Eric, I don't have to tell you this. That's been the biggest problem with Syracuse. So Chris Bleich moves on. I think David Wollabaugh is going to be healthy again. He showed some promise last year at right tackle before he got hurt. You've got a few key guys coming back on that offensive line. That's the one thing through all this. Everybody was saying to me, Brent, I love what's happening here. But they wanted to see a little more offensive line depth added, and maybe they can still do that when the portal opens up again.
Right.
But, man, it'd be hard not to look at this roster and say it has improved where it matters. Not just like bodies, but the type of players that Fran Brown was able to bring in. Now let's look at the players that decided to come back. Arande Gatson, Marlo Wax, LaQuint Allen, Elijah Clark, Justin Barron, Dan Villari, Damian Alford. All of which either could have just saying, all of which could have gone to the pros or gone to the portal. They all came back.
Yeah.
And that was that momentum we talked about that Fran Brown built. It wasn't, this is what we're going to do. It's like, guys, this is what we're doing. You're seeing it right before your very eyes.
100%. Do you know the scholarship count that they're at? Like, do they have room in the spring, or maybe are you assuming maybe some guys leave after spring ball and then we have a couple? Because that to me is it's the funny thing, especially at Clemson, because Coach Sweeney does not use the portal, but a lot of the times he doesn't have room. He doesn't have room for the portal. The guys aren't leaving. Guys are taking those extra years and staying, and he's not kicking anybody out. So do you happen to know that off the top of your head, or is there room to add?
There's a little bit of room last I checked, but I remember having the conversation. I brought her up earlier, my terrific colleague, Emily Liker at Syracuse.com. I'm like, someone's going to have to go here. This is going to get tight. And this happens when a new coach takes over. There's honest conversations about what your role is here. I think spring ball is really going to tell the tell the tale of that, guys.
Right.
I think there's a few guys that are hanging on. They're like, kind of let me see how this goes. And then that second portal window opens and they can truly see where they fit. Remember, they're changing the offense. This is no longer a 3-3-5 defense.
Right.
Okay. You've got Elijah Robinson coming in. I loved what he said, by the way, in one of his interviews when he's like, we're going to hunt on defense. We're going to get after it.
Come on.
Much more. We went over the names, defensive line oriented, kind of 4-3 defense. So if you feel like you don't fit in that, and you were recruited to first Tony White, then Rocky Long's 3-3-5, you may want to go elsewhere. So I don't think we're done in terms of transition, but scholarship wise, it always seems to work out. And I feel like it will here at Syracuse.
I'm glad to see Syracuse move away from the 3-3-5 personally, because I think in some ways it can be a little gimmicky and that can give you some issues down the line. And of course you want to build up that D line, but Brent, I want to ask about expectations overall for 2024 here in February. And now, Mac, do you remember on our North Carolina episode, I said UNC had one of the easiest schedules in Power 5, perhaps.
You were pretty aggressive about that. Yes, you did say that.
Power 4, RIP Pac-12. I am looking at Syracuse's schedule here, and I am thinking, okay, this is also a very, very manageable schedule. I do not see Florida State, and I do not see Clemson. And I see in the non-con Holy Cross, Ohio, UNLV, and UConn. So, Brent, how are we feeling about the schedule? How are we feeling about 2024 expectation?
I mean, 12-0. What else is there to say? Come on.
Woo!
But
and a Heisman.
listen,
who's winning the Villari for Heisman?
I would love that. I would love that. Now, I say that with a little sarcasm But I also say this, Kelly. There's an expanded college football playoff this year. And if Syracuse can work its way through this schedule and get into the ACC championship game, is that crazy to say? Because, look, you just said it. No Florida State, no Clemson, no North Carolina.
True.
Okay? Now, that Georgia Tech game early is key, and I like that they've got an early game like that. I don't think it helps you to kind of feast on cupcakes for 4 games and then go into ACC play. It has not worked for Syracuse, so I like that mixed in there. Stanford comes in on a Friday night. That's a team I think you should be able to handle. Former Syracuse quarterback Justin Lamson, by the way.
Especially Stanford having to travel across the globe to come play you.
Which way are they going to go? They're going to go right or left? How are they going to get to
Stanford, Pacific Ocean, and the Atlantic Coast Conference? I'm still getting used to all this, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the tricky thing about the schedule, Kelly. And I don't know why Syracuse has done this 2 years in a row. There are no home games in the month of October.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Why?
It's so strange.
So, October 5th. Now, I love the fact that Uncle Brent's going to Vegas on October 5th. Let's go.
Woo!
I am so excited. I've never been there.
Oh,
I've never
okay.
been to Las Vegas.
It's fun.
You're gonna
brother.
love it,
It's
Brent.
fun. It's fun.
But that's a key non-conference game. They brought in a quarterback, by the way, I thought would be here, Matt Sloka from Holy Cross. I thought he would come with Bob Chesney. He's now at UNLV, and UNLV can sling it. So that is going to be a early test for Syracuse in the non-con. At NC State, obviously a tough game.
Mm-hmm.
Out of a bye, Thursday night at Pittsburgh. They play Syracuse, has not won this century.
Oh, wow.
They beat Pitt last year in the gimmick game at Yankee Stadium.
That is the weirdest October I may have ever seen.
It's strange. It's strange.
Yeah.
Then you come back home, Virginia Tech, who smacked Syracuse last year on Thursday night. At BC, no Jeff Hafley now, so we'll see what kind of team that is. You go to Cal, November 16th. Now, again, that's a team you should beat, but those West Coast trips are weird.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what time that game is. If that's noon West Coast, that's 9 a.m. Eastern time. Those are weird trips.
Yeah.
But then you said it, UConn, Miami, to close it out. By the way, thank you to the ACC schedule gods for getting rid of this dopey division format and going to the schedule format we have. You know that Miami has not come to the Dome since 2002?
Hey, come on, Miami.
Wow.
Come on up, baby. Come on up, and we're going to make it cold for you.
That's crazy.
You guys say it better than I do, but I'm going to steal your line. I'm just saying, that Syracuse-Miami game, there could be something on the line there.
Let's go, man. Come on. I'm excited for it. Listen, I was already excited about Cuse.
I think it's an 8-win team.
All right.
I love that. I love it. Kyle McCord, how quick is the transition? 3,000 plus yards? You think no problem?
Boy, you would hope so. I mean, he gets 3,000 yards.
He's got weapons, man. I know he did, obviously, at Ohio State. I mean, I know what it was. But
he's got
some dogs here, too, man.
And he did that last year, Eric, with a bum foot. He's playing last year with a bad ankle. He actually just had a boot on his foot here. That boot is now off. People are freaking out because the football team went on the court during one of the basketball games, and they were throwing T-shirts in the crowd. And I saw one out of the corner of my eye go into the upper deck, and I turned to Mike Waters. I said, I hope that was Kyle McCord.
Oh, my
your quarterback hitting the upper deck. But he was in a boot.
Oh.
So I'm getting 1,000 texts like, oh, my God, what's going on with Kyle McCord? But he's fine. He just had some stuff cleaned up here in the offseason. He's good to go for spring practice. So, look, Marvin Harrison Jr. is, come on. I mean, he's a unicorn.
Yeah.
But given you've got Aronde Gadsden, you've got Damian Alford, Syracuse brought in 2 receivers from Georgia in Jackson Meeks and Yasid Haynes, who are both speedsters. Volari at tight end. God love my heart. Jeff Nixon put in a lot of 12 personnel. They're going to throw the ball to the darn tight end in this offense. But here's the thing. McCord is not mobile. Okay, Garrett Schrader, as we well know, extended plays and just the guy's doing flips on the field last year, if you remember that. I don't think Kyle McCord's doing that. So they've got to protect the quarterback. And I know that's like the most essential thing in football. Eric, you know it as well as anybody. But McCord's just not one of these, I'm going to take off and run and make a Sports Center highlight type of quarterback. So they've got to establish that.
No question. Yeah. No question. Well, brother, this was so much fun. Like I said, Cuse to win it all, baby. Let's get it done. A couple of Heisman Trophy winners. We might have a tie. Valari and McCord splitting the trophy in half at the end of the year. You're the best, brother. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure, guys. It's always so much fun, and I'm just happy that Syracuse fans want to talk football all year.
That's right.
This has been great, and you guys are talking football all year. I love your pod. You guys are doing great. Always good to see your faces, and here we go, baby. Let's do this thing.
Thanks again to Brent Axe for joining us. The Axe Man. Follow all of his Syracuse stuff. He's got his podcast now. He's doing massive things up there. If you follow anything
you can text
Syracuse,
him, apparently you can just text him.
Yeah, that's right.
Talk about the Cuse Orange.
Yeah. Hey, sounds good to me. Mac, I stand by what I said, that this schedule is manageable.
You're coming after people's schedule. We need to do an episode about this. That's what we need to do.
Well, yeah, but I think they should be happy. This is great. Sure. This is great, Syracuse. You don't have Clemson, you don't have Florida State, you don't have North Carolina. Very manageable. Start off at home. Like, come on, Syracuse. It's time. Yeah. It's time.
It's time. As Dan Presser will say, it's time to go win a chip. Okay, that dude loves his Cuse Orange. I don't love the layout of the schedule. I agree. Opponent-wise, it's weird. Nice. But no home games in October, the chunky like home, then away, then a little back and forth. A little strange, but go do it. You know, I cannot wait to see what Kyle McCord looks like in this offense.
Right.
Cannot wait to see what these big, fast bodies look like. Just something that Syracuse has had flashes of, but has not had depth and hasn't added guys. And we didn't even really touch on recruiting. Like, we were so excited about the transfer portal. They're killing it in recruiting, too, with the high school folks in the surrounding areas. And Coach Fran Brown, can't wait to get to continue to meet him and know him and just build that relationship, because I love his swagger. You know, it's kind of this – not really soft-spoken, but quiet strength, if you will, where he's just intense, locked in, and ready to go. And I'm excited for it. Love the way that he's leaning into the alumni, too. I think that is so important, and I think going to be very beneficial, to Syracuse and to their football team, the product they have. So big shout-out to the Axe Man. Again, for KG's birthday, I'm going to get a audio recording of him reading a actual phone book. And sending it to her.
Thank you so much.
We're going to make
I look
that
forward
happen.
To it.
And Valentine's coming, guys. Go get your men some stuff. Take care of them, okay? That's what we need to do here today.
And for all the men that listen to this podcast, take care of your wives. Come on.
Hey, listen, we already know that. Everyone
don't forget.
That. Okay, we don't have to have any reminders about that. But maybe you do. Maybe you do. If you listen, hey, Valentine's Day's coming, okay? So get it right. Get it figured out. And go to Ingles to get your stuff. We're going to have the competition. We need your guys' votes. We need you to just tell us, did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? And who won? Okay, this is America. We don't do ties. We don't do ties around here. But big shout out to you guys. We need your continuous help over on YouTube. Subscribe. Jump on this channel. We try to have a lot of fun over here. And, of course, the OGs over on Apple Podcasts as well. Rate, review, subscribe. We would greatly appreciate that. But until next time, we'll see y'all.